What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey, episode number 171, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of all things relating to the greatest game in the world, the game of hockey. My name is Vinny Parisi, and I believe the New Jersey Devils are going to win the Stanley Cup. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he is the king of all beans. Frank, how you doing?
You know, today is a milestone type of day.
Oh, yeah?
I'm in a hoodie and sweatpants. And I think that, I mean, for the most part, like besides like bonfire weather and stuff, this is like the first official day where it just feels right to be in a hoodie and sweatpants, which means summer's basically come to an end. The weather's getting shittier. Here we are. It's a milestone.
Here we are.
You say how it is for the rest of the year. We don't know.
You say shittier. I say hell yeah.
Well, I love this type of weather.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like when it's 85, 90 degrees. I'm sweating bullets out here. I like it when it's sweater weather. You could put on a sweatshirt and sweatpants. I love it. But it is a milestone. It's like the end of summer officially as we get into the fall season, the hockey season.
Absolutely, Frank. I'm so excited. Today is going to be where the day where we preview your favorite team's division.
Yeah.
The Chicago Blackhawks in the Central Division feel like a loaded division this year. I'm ready to hop right into it. This is going to be a really good division this year, Frank. I'm looking at my list and I'm seeing 3 or 4 teams that could legitimately compete for the Stanley Cup, and I'm seeing 2 or 3 teams that could surprise some people as we move along here. Frank, let's start off with the team that won the division last year, the Dallas Stars. What do you think about the Dallas Stars? One player to watch, strengths and weaknesses. Anything you got for me on the Dallas Stars?
Well, you know, the Dallas Stars, they're one of the best teams, not only in the division, but in the NHL. And they've yet to win a Stanley Cup with their current core that they've built. But they're always one of those teams that are in contention. They're trying to get back to the Western Conference Finals this year, where they fell just short to the Oilers last year, and they maybe even do one better and win the Stanley Cup this year because they're definitely in contention. The player I think we need to watch this year is Jake Oettinger. He's been a stud for the team. I love Jake Oettinger, one of my favorite goaltenders in the league. He's been the backbone of the Dallas Stars, and he's actually now, after last season, have gone 3 straight seasons with 30 or more wins. Lights out in the postseason. He's been great in the postseason. Last year, he was in the 19 games he played in, 224 goals against, 913 save percentage. Those are absolutely ridiculously great stats for postseason hockey. If the Dallas Stars are going to get to the conference finals again or win the Stanley Cup this year, it's going to be heavily because of the man in net. They got that potent offense. They got great defensemen. And Oettinger, he's a Vezina caliber candidate every single year. The strengths on this team, general manager Jim Nill. He's been great with the Stars. Nill knows what the Stars lack, and he fixes those issues right away. He doesn't wait on it. He jumps on it immediately. He knows what kind of players to bring in to fix holes, and he, like I said, he doesn't wait to fix those issues. He has now won back-to-back General Manager of the Year awards, and to make a long story short, the Stars are lucky to have Jim Nill as their general manager. Now, the issues that we've kind of seen recently, and especially last year, is their defensive depth. That's really been a big issue for them. For much of the playoffs this past season, the Stars really only used 4 or 5 defensemen. Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, Thomas Harley, Chris Tanas. They all averaged over 22 minutes of ice time through those 19 playoff games. Jim Nill went out and addressed those issues this summer. They're bringing in Matt Dumba, Ilya Lyubushkin, Brendan Smith, it should be interesting. They address those issues. Like I said, that's what Jim Nill does. How will they fare? I don't know, but I think hopefully better. Their blue line will be a little bit deeper this year, and that's going to help them and make them a contender. I strongly believe that.
The Dallas Stars are so good. Right. Like I'm looking at this lineup and I see that top line with Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston. Wyatt Johnston is low key one of the best players in the NHL already, and he's only going to get better. And he's playing alongside Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson, who most people would consider the two best forwards on the Dallas Stars. Then they got that second line with Marchment, Duchesne, and Sagan. Well, with Sagan and Ben kind of reviving their careers a little bit over the last 2 years, their contracts have been a lot less albatross, and it just adds to the depth on the team. A guy like Mason Marchment's a good filler. I really like their fourth line with Dadonov, Steele, and Blackwell. I mean, there's some jam on that line with also a little bit of scoring touch. Colin Blackwell was awesome with the Chicago Blackhawks last year. And so if he could kind of bring some of that to the fourth line with Dadonov, who scored a crap ton of goals in the NHL, and we know what Sam Steele's all about, from his days with the Ducks and being awesome in the World Juniors, I remember too, back in the day. But it's a really interesting team. The one player I didn't mention is my one player to watch for the Dallas Stars, and that's Logan Stankoven. Logan Stankoven is a beast, man. He came in the last year and he was one of their most productive forwards in the second half. He kind of looked like a rookie at times in the playoffs, but that wasn't even really his official rookie season. He's up for the Calder Trophy this year. He could win it if he has a real good year. He didn't play enough games to take himself off that list. So he's got to come into the year as one of the favorites to do that. And when I look at this team from top to bottom, I see nothing short of a Stanley Cup contender because you brought up some of the additions they made on defense. Miro Heiskanen, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, one of the best players in the NHL.
Could be a Norris candidate.
He could be a Norris candidate. I kind of view him in the same stratosphere that I put someone like Charlie McAvoy, one of the 5 or 6 best defensemen in the NHL. I just don't know if the offensive numbers will ever match that of a Norris winner in today's game. When I think of guys like Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, Cale Makar all having 80, 90, maybe even 100 points. If Cale can get to 30 this year, goals. I do think like there's an offensive ceiling for Heiskanen, not even necessarily his own choice. I think if he went out there and said, I want to be a 100-point defenseman, but I'm going to not be as efficient in my own, he could probably do it, right? I just don't think it's going to happen. So I kind of view him and McAvoy in that same stratosphere, which like sometimes you have a better chance to win if your top defenseman is a guy like that. Think of Pietrangelo, right? Like a guy like that. He's won the cup twice. I kind of view McAvoy, Heiskanen. Like Heiskanen will be on that Sweden team, right, in January or February with the Four Nations face-off, and he's going to be their best defenseman, and they're going to have a real chance to win gold, and he's going to be a huge part of it. So yeah, I really like Heiskanen. I think he's amazing, and he will play well on the Dallas Stars this year. It's looking like Dumba's going to be his partner right off the bat, which what a heel turn for Dumba to go play for Dallas after all those years on the Wild.
I know.
But, and then their goaltending situation with Ottinger. I think Casey DeSmith is probably a downgrade from Wedgwood, but, he's still a good goalie. He's, won games in the NHL with Pittsburgh and Vancouver. So we'll see what happens with the backup situation there. But with Ottinger, it's not too much of a worry. I really like Dallas. Like they come into the year as one of my bugaboos in the NHL, one of those teams that could absolutely get it done. Hey, if they didn't run into that team of Destiny Oilers team last year, they could have gotten it done against them. Like once they took out Vegas, it's like the winner of this series could go to the conference finals at minimum. And that's exactly what happened. Dallas is really, really good.
It was their defense, I think, that screwed them. I really do.
Kind of what? I mean, yeah, they definitely have firepower up front. And some people who maybe don't watch hockey quite as much as we do, but enough, they might look at this roster and go, well, they don't have that one guy. Like, they don't have that Jack Hughes or Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews. Actually, they kind of do. Jason Robertson is that. Like, he kind of was quiet in the playoffs, and I think that was a big reason that they didn't win the cup either. He kind of fell silent in the playoffs. But I mean, in the regular season, Robertson's a megastar. Hintz is a megastar, right up there with some of the best in the league. And they kind of have three really, really good scorelines. They kind of have three eras of player. Really, if you think of, we talk about this all the time, the way they have Ben and Sagan and Duchesne as kind of those older guys. And then, it was Pavelski before too. And then they have those middle guys, those guys who are like right entering their prime, like Robertson, Hintz, and then Johnson and Stankoven, man. That's the next generation. And that's just with forwards. So we kind of talked about Dallas a lot. I just think there's a lot to talk about with them. They are a really good team. Frank, let's move on over to the Colorado Avalanche. What do you got on them with all of our criteria here?
The Colorado Avalanche, they're one of the most fun teams to watch in the NHL. When you watch Avalanche games, you feel like no lead is too much to overcome. We've talked about that many times with each other. They play such a modern, fast style of hockey, and literally every one of their games are intense, even the ones where you think they're going to get blown out. They just make it interesting. They're just the definition of a true wagon in the NHL. One of the players to watch, I'm going with chalk here, but I'm going with Cale Makar. He's, in my opinion, and probably yours too, the best defenseman in the NHL. I don't always like to choose players like this to watch because it's a no-brainer. Of course, we're going to be focusing on this guy. But getting to watch Makar is really a true thing of beauty. I've seen him do some dirty, dirty things to the Chicago Blackhawks. And I'm thinking about one goal in particular came a couple years ago when he spun around Kirby Dach, undressed Marc-Andre Fleury, and put it top shelf. Just seeing that, watching that live was like, holy crap. Cale Makar is the real deal. Playing on a line with Devin Taves also, I mean, come on. That just makes Colorado Avalanche, this team, even more dangerous. He's only 25 years old. We're not even in the golden age of his career yet. I mean, people get to like their golden years like 28, 29, or 27, 28, 29 even. Like, this kid is still getting better. He's really a treat to watch. Colorado strengths, you got everything you need with your starting five, right? You got the offense that keeps you in game every night. If you find yourself down 3 goals, you're back in it, potentially. You have that team. You got arguably the best defenseman tandem in the league with Makar and Devin Taves. This is a team that usually never struggles to score goals. They play good defense, a reason why they're Stanley Cup contenders every year. The goaltending, I think, is their biggest flaw. There's not many flaws with this team, and hear me out here, right? Don't get me wrong. Georgiev, he's done very, very well with his time in Colorado. 78 wins, 125 starts. He has been far from bad. He's actually been very great, but I don't think he's been good enough. If you want to beat the Stars, if you want to beat the Oilers in the Western Conference, or whoever's waiting on the other side in the Eastern Conference, you can't just be very good. That's not going to cut it. You have to have a guy you can rely on in big situations. Can you win a Stanley Cup with him? Absolutely. But there are times where I see him being too inconsistent, and that's what leads to their downfall in the season.
I hate this team. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in the wrong way. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. I'm low on them right now, and I'll tell you why. They traded Bowen Byram, a stud top 4 defenseman, for Casey Middlestat. You needed a second-line center because you couldn't get Kadri signed 2 years ago. That was a mistake. Okay? I think that was a mistake. Casey Middlestat is not your second-line center on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's not. He could be a winger on a second line on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's not your second line center on a Stanley Cup winning team. And you traded a guy who was a legit part of your top 4D, and you didn't replace him with a top 4D. You have Devin Taves, Cale Makar, Sam Girard. It's hard to find a better top 3 than that in the NHL. There are a couple, there are a handful. They wouldn't be the number 1 ranked top 3D in the NHL, but they're up there in the top 10. And then you add Josh Manson, who's a good player, but with Oliver Killington and Eric Brandstrom as the 3rd, 4th, and 5th guy on the team, it's not the best. I look at their depth: Ross Colton, Miles Wood, Logan O'Connor. That's a pretty good third line. But are they really going to have Callum Ritchie and Yoel Kiviranta on their top line or second line with Middlestat? I mean, that'd be a really good third line. But Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor would be a really good fourth line. Then you go to their fourth line and you see Nikolai Kovalenko, Parker Kelly, and Chris Wagner. Other than Chris Wagner, who have you even heard of before, unless you're like really locked into Colorado Avalanche lure? I like Drew Wen on the top line with Mac Daddy and Mikko Rantanen. Obviously, that's one of the best lines in the NHL. You have Cale Makar, as you mentioned. He was your player to watch. He's the best defenseman in the NHL, and he could change any game with, one little play. And I love Taves. I think Taves makes Team Canada. You look at their power play with Rantanen, McKinnon, Middlestat, Drouin, and Makar. That is a dynamite power play. That'll win them a lot of games. I wouldn't be shocked if they have a top 5, top 10 PP unit, and that helps them be amongst one of the most exciting teams in the league to watch. I don't like the fact that Valeri Nichushkin and Arturi Lehtinen are out. That's really, really hard to replace guys like that. I think Nichushkin probably misses the whole year. I don't know how Lehkonen is going to fare, at least to start the year. That's a big hole missing from their lineup. And then Gabriel Landeskog, he's supposed to come back at some point. He's still on IR. They haven't activated him yet, so I don't know what's going to happen there. If all three of them came back and were their old selves, I think this team would have a much better chance. But right now, I look at the Central Division, and I see two teams that are definitively better than them and in the regular season. We'll see what it translates to playoffs. And then there are 2 or 3 teams that could challenge Colorado and I think make things really difficult on them this year. I kind of think having the Nate Dogg and Kale Salad on the back end with Rantanen, who's one of the 5 best wingers in the NHL, that might be enough to be a playoff team. Like, I'm kind of thinking if you took those 3 guys and plucked them off the Avalanche and put them on any team in the NHL, they probably become a bubble team at minimum. Because they have those 3. Their lineup isn't like puke in my mouth gross. I just don't think it's like a bona fide playoff contender lineup right now with some of the injuries that they have. They lost Zach Parise to retirement. There's all sorts of reasons to be down on Colorado right now, and I don't think Georgiev's going to have that good of a year, not for anything that he did wrong. It's more along the lines of just the team. I don't see them defending all that well. Now, I do think Makar's going to have 100 points. I think he's in the Hart Trophy conversation this year. I predicted that last year, and he kind of got off to a slightly slow start offensively, but boy, did he pick it up at the end. And he's going to, let's face it, he's going to have a lot more minutes this year. Their Avalanche aren't going to be as good. They might be, using him a lot, and I think his point totals are going to climb through the roof. And the Nate Dogg will assist or score on a lot of those points for Makar. He'll have an MVP caliber season again. I feel the same way about Rantanen, so that's why I'll probably put him in the playoffs. But I look at the lineup, I'm not blown away by Colorado anymore.
Wow. Shocking.
I mean, the time would come eventually.
Yeah.
I still think they're good. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're good. I'm not trying to spoil what I'm going to pick, but I'm probably going to put them 3rd in the Central. Or like top wild card, because I told you last week or 2 weeks ago when we did the Pacific, I have 5 teams coming out of the Central. But
crazy if they drop below 5.
That's what I'm thinking. And they're better than the Kings, especially if Drew Doughty misses any significant time now that he's hurt in the preseason game. I don't know if you saw. I'm sure you did. I don't think they're better than San Jose, Anaheim. Who am I missing in the Pacific? I think they're better than the Kraken, barely, but I think they're better than the Kraken. Not Edmonton, not Vegas, and not Vancouver. So
pretty high. I'm not gonna lie. We'll see what happens. We're like opposites on them.
Yeah, I look at the lineup. I'm like, eh. And listen, again, if the Nate Dogg and Cale Makar carry them to really nice heights in the regular season, I won't be that surprised. But entering the year, I look at the lineup and I'm like, eh.
There's a team
not
we're
terrible.
About soon that it also depends how they do too.
I think
we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you said the next one.
I think so.
Well, the next one I was going to talk about is the Winnipeg Wets.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot will ride on them, but yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about them.
Because this is always a team where there seems to be question marks from us about the Jets. Like last year, were they going to take a step back? No, I mean, they finished with 110 points. I mean, it helps that Connor Hellebuck decided to say, but we never just seem so confident in this Jets team as of late, right? Like, I like
No,
it,
and last year they could have won the cup if they beat Colorado and
right?
go to play Dallas in the second round. The Colorado Dallas series went
But
6. Why couldn't the Winnipeg Dallas series go 6 if
how
Hellebuck plays good? Like,
right, because Hellebuck, he could steal the series, but I'll talk about some of their weaknesses here in a second, why I think they couldn't beat Colorado. But I just don't think this Winnipeg Jets has that team right now. But I think the player we should focus on is Nikolai Ehlers, or Ehlers. Do you say Ehlers or Ehlers?
I say Ehlers.
It was Ehlers, then it was Ehlers. Now I feel like it's back to Ehlers. Nikolai Ehlers, he had a very slow start to the season last year. It's important, especially for this team, that he finished out very strong. I think that bodes well for the upcoming season. Ehlers finished with 50 points in his final 60 games. He was sizzling. A big reason why Winnipeg got into the playoffs and was that dominant team in the regular season, because the past 3 seasons prior to this past season for Ehlers, he struggled mightily. And obviously that was due to injuries and he wasn't healthy, but he was really struggling, picked up the pace. If he could stay healthy and play 90% or more of the games this season, I think he's going to help the Jets, be that team that is a force again when we think we doubt him. I don't love this Jets team, but they have players on this team that can keep the regular season interesting. And Ehlers is one of those guys. The Jets' success really depends on him. And I'll tell you, I'll explain why when we get to their weaknesses. Their strength, obviously, is their goaltending. By far the biggest strength. Getting to keep Connor Hellebuck has kept them from really being a bubble team. If this team lost Connor Hellebuck for a long period of time, it's over, VP. Wrap it up, put a bow on it, it's over. I strongly believe that. As long as they have Hellebuck, they won't ever really be a below average team. The worst they could be on any given year is probably a bubble team if he stays healthy. But we'll see how it goes. The reason why they weren't able to beat the Colorado Avalanche is they just lack top talent. Yeah, they got Kyle Connor. They got Mark Scheifele. They're great. They produce goals, but the rest of the team fails to produce points. You can't rely on 3 guys on this team. It's not spread out enough. You need a little mix of both. Are you ready for this stat, VP? This just blew my mind. They had 110 points in the regular season, right? Not one player on their team who played more than 1 game went point per game. Unbelievable. Mark Scheifele was the team leader with 72 points. And Josh Morrissey, great defenseman, but he was second in points with 69 points. How are you a 110-point team if nobody's producing? So when you get to the playoffs and that shows, you're not gonna beat the Colorado Avalanche in a shootout. It's just not gonna happen. And that showed. It's because they don't have that elite talent to contend with those other big dogs in the Central Division. The Central Division stacked. They don't have guys that can produce enough. Like we've talked about teams in the past, it's good to have talent spread out, not spread out enough. They're not doing enough, these guys. They don't have that dog.
Well, we've seen in the past Scheifele be like that guy, right? Like
He is. They got 3 guys. They got 3 that guys.
yeah, that we've seen in the past. Your stat intrigued me. Kyle Connor had 61 points in 65 games, and Scheifele had 72 points in 74 games. They were close to being point per game, but we've seen Scheifele. I bet since coming into the league, Scheifele's top 10 in the NHL in goals.
He very might be, but you can't rely on those 3 guys. It showed. It showed their depth. They don't have great depth.
Yeah, well, Kyle Connor also got very injured at the very beginning of last season. I am interested to see what Scheifele and Connor do if they both stay healthy together all season long. I don't think the Jets are like all that, but every year their depth kind of like goes to prove me wrong. Like I'm not going to sit here and not pick them to make playoffs. I think the trade they made with the Los Angeles Kings is like really keeping them above water right now. Getting frickin' Velarde and Iafallo for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's already out of Los Angeles. I mean, what a trade for the Jets. They did really, really well there. This Cole Perfetti, he's incredible. He's a very good player. But I don't love that the year's 2024 and Vladislav Nemesnikov is still centering a second line That's not, a typical winning second line center. It's like having Middlestad as your second line center. I view hockey up the ice from the back end out through the center. And that's where hockey games are won and lost, especially in the playoffs. So I'm not sitting here acting them like I'm going to pick them to make the playoffs. But Nino Niederreiter, he's an analytical darling, right? The analytics community loves Nino Niederreiter, thinks he's one of the best defensive wingers in the NHL. So that's good if you're a Jets fan. But I'm looking at the top six. I'm like, it doesn't have that punch that it once did, but it still has enough players where I think they'll be like a top team in the not NHL, but like they'll probably be a playoff team. It's kind of like looking back at the Pacific. Do I think they're better than Edmonton? No. Do I think they're better than Vegas? No. Do I think they're better than Vancouver? No. Do I think they're better than Los Angeles? Yeah, I think I might. Do I think they're better than San Jose, Anaheim, Seattle? Yes, I do.
They're always going to be that team that's right there. Like I said, they're never going to be a below average team with the current core they got, especially with Hellebuyck. I just don't trust them this year. I really don't. And I said that last year, and they proved me wrong. They just don't have that. They're not a cup contending team to me. I don't see them winning a cup with this current core. They're not.
No, I don't think so either.
There's a lot of wagons in the Western Conference.
100%. I'm with you on that. I don't have them in that stratosphere, but I think they'll be a top team in the West in the regular season. Frank, one of the teams that was the most exciting during the summer was the Nashville Predators. They went out and got themselves from the nice, cool hockey store some Steven Stamkos, some Jonathan Marchessault. On the back end a little bit, some Brady Shea to pair up with Roman Josi. This Nashville. They locked in. What's his name? UC Saros. Scott Wedgwood's the new backup, so they upgrade there. I look at this team. I see a lot of skills, Frank. What do you think?
Yeah, they are one of the most improved teams, maybe the most improved team this offseason. It's going to be weird seeing Brady Shea, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault all in a Preds uniform. Still really hasn't clicked with me yet until I see it on the ice. Obviously, they're one of my least favorite teams for multitude of reasons, but they are one of the most teams I'm excited to see how they perform from all their offseason moves. Obviously, going to have my eyes set on Steven Stamkos. I love Steven Stamkos. Steven Stamkos is a top player for me in the NHL. He's probably a top 5 favorite player of mine in the NHL. So now that he's a division rival with the Blackhawks and I get to see him even more, it'll be interesting to see how he performs. Spent 16 years with Tampa Bay. He spent a decade as captain for the Lightning. He's going to be calling a new city his home. It's going to be weird for not only us, but for him as well. But yeah, the past 3 seasons, Stamkos has gone 2 40 goal scoring seasons and a 30 goal scoring season. He's going on age 35 and he still proves he could score goals. That's great for his game. That's why the Predators wanted him. They still know he's got that dog in him. I think the biggest question is, can he do it on the Predators? The short answer is he should be able to, with all the talent that they've added and that they've already had, right? But playing in Tampa for 16 years, then coming to Nashville could be tricky for him. I'm not going to lie, for his mojo. I expect him to have a fantastic season, just like he did on Tampa. But if there are some, things like, Stamkos looks a little shaky, that would probably be why. I mean, it's not easy to do what he did. There was a lot of emotions involved with him this offseason. All eyes are going to be fixated on him. I can't wait. Should be fun. Their biggest strength, something that hasn't really been a big strength of theirs lately, so they should have a very good power play this season. They were 16th last season, hovered right around the middle of the pack in the NHL. Their projected top power play unit this year, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. If the chemistry is there, there's no reason why they can't have a top 5 power play this season. And if that's the case, yeah, they're going to be a wagon too. Their bottom 6 offensive depth, very weak. You could take a look. Yeah, you could take a look at who they're throwing out there on the 3rd, 4th lines. I'm not going to lie, VP, things are a little scary. There's some guys down there with very little experience. I think the top 6 will do enough to take the pressure and weight off the bottom 6. But if injuries occur, the bottom 6 could be their downfall later on. They got to hope their guys stay healthy. And I think that's common sense with any team. But I don't love their bottom 6 at all.
I don't love their bottom six. I like Luke Evangelista, though. He was one of the players I was going to talk about, just being like a guy who can add some depth on the team. I like that Stamkos is playing wing now. I know someone like yourself who likes to boycott the preseason for whatever freaking reason. That's why you don't know what it's like to see Stamkos already play for Nashville. Boy, did he score a butte already. He looks good. He looks
Well, when you're scoring
healthy.
against Uber drivers, I hope so.
Huh?
When you're scoring against Uber drivers, I hope so.
Yeah, right. It was against freaking, wasn't it against Hellebuck? Like, I'm pretty sure. Like, what the hell? Like, dumb comment. You got to watch these
Uber drivers.
preseason games. You got to watch these preseason games. That's how you see if guys are looking comfortable, looking healthy. On the wing, Stamkos has been playing wing a little bit for the last couple years down in Tampa. It'll be interesting to see what it's like when he doesn't have Nikita Kucherov, but he'll have Marchessault, Tom Novak in the middle. I don't love that as a second line center. A lot in the Central Division, a lot of my themes, every team but Dallas so far. I don't love what they got going down the middle of the ice. But Stamkos could play like a center, so I guess it's a little different with Nashville than the rest of the crew in the Central Division. But I like this Nashville team. I don't think their depth is like unholy, but I don't think it's like this great depth. I do like adding Jeremy Lauzon on the back end for them. And then with Luke Shen as kind of that veteran in the bottom pair, should be good. Brady Shea and Roman Yossi, they'll be sick together on the top line. We didn't even really talk much about Forsberg, who's one of the best players in the NHL, right? One of the most exciting, skilled, gifted players in the NHL, too. So I'm excited to see what he can do to help lead this Nashville team. I think it's going to be good times down in Honky Tonk this year. The funnest street in the United States of America is Broadway in Nashville. I wholeheartedly believe that.
Got to get there.
You got to get there bad. Bad. I mean, I haven't been on this Vegas Strip yet. I'm sure that competes,
Vegas
right?
was unbelievable.
I'm sure that competes, but Broadway in Nashville is just so much fun. I love every minute of it. Okay, now let's go to one of my favorite teams in the NHL. One of the teams I rep the most in my life has been the Minnesota Wild. Frank, the Minnesota Wild, they won the draft, right? They got the guy I would have taken second overall at 12, Zeev Buyam, or was it 13? Whatever. What a bunch of dumb teams in the NHL. Dumb teams stay dumb. He'll go back to Denver this year. He won't play for Minnesota till April, more than likely. But the Wild, they have a really skilled group that kind of got off to a terrible start last year and were never able to recover. Another team I don't love down the middle, unless Marco Rossi really rises to the occasion this year. Joel Eriksson Ek is one of the best defensive centermen in the NHL, so he's really good to have there as well. But Rossi kind of needs to take a big step, I think. They use Hartman on the top line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but Kaprizov and Zuccarello both benefit from having a grinder like Hartman in the middle. Matt Boldy, obviously a really, really good player. You look at the back end. Last year, Jonas Brodin and Jared Spurgeon hardly played. And that was a big issue for them as they tried to be like a team that kept the puck out of their net. With Brock Faber coming into his own this year, you would like to think he kind of was stinky to end last year, but he was really, really good to start, and he still came in second place for the Calder Trophy. If those top 3D could kind of like do their job with Middleton, Chisholm, and Bogosian there, I think it could be a solid group. But with Kirill Kaprizov leading the way on offense, and I already touched on Boldy, and you have Eriksson Ek and Rossi, it could be a really good team. It's kind of like a bubble team, in my opinion, because they still have $15 million against the cap to Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. This is the last year where that'll be the case. So they'll probably go out and be competitive on free agents after this year. They got one more year of just trying to float along. But with Gustafson and Marc-Andre Fleury in the mix as goaltenders, that could also go either way. Fleury's been up and down the last year or two, but the Wild weren't that great defensively last year, as I pointed out in front of him. And then Gustafson went from being like a guy that we thought could take a step into being one of the elite goalies in the NHL. I think you picked him to win the Vezina this year. Keep your negative bad JoJo away from freaking Gustafson this year. Talk some trash about him right now so he could shove it up your hoop, because he was bad last year, man. And I do think you were on to something. I think you might have been a year too late. Hopefully this is the year where when you don't call him your Vezina winner, he does come out there and like put up similar statistics.
Maybe I should call
2 years ago.
Maybe I should call Saros my Vezina winner. So they shit the bed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good luck with that.
You know my hatred for Nashville. It's just all love.
I get that.
Breaking news, by the way. Did you know Don Burr's favorite team is Detroit? Did you?
Hopefully the Sabres don't make the playoffs over you, Don Burr. Otherwise, you will have the longest no playoff streak in the NHL.
That'd be a tough look for Don Burr.
Saying.
Don Burr could be a tough look. But anyway, the Minnesota
These
Wild.
Lions are good, right, Dom? Or
Yeah,
Don? Oh,
yeah.
and the Tigers are going to clinch a playoff berth this weekend.
Yeah.
So
it's going to bone the Mariners, but potentially. But yeah.
Anyone but the Twins.
Very disappointing year for the Wild last year. You basically went over everything in terms of that. Missed the playoffs by 11 points. They're going to try their darndest to get back to being an elite team. I do think they got the talent to do so. Matt Boldy is one of those players that you just love to watch. Love to watch him develop. He's so talented. This is Boldy's 4th season. Each year, he's progressively getting better. He nearly went back-to-back seasons as a 30-goal scorer, came 1 goal short, did miss 7 games, might have gotten it if he played a full season, and he's doing all this at the age of 23 years old. That says a lot about this kid on a team where they missed the playoffs by 11 points. The talent around this kid is what has excelled his development. I think we are in for Matt Boldy's first career 70-point season this year. That's not like a big shocker or this big hot take because he's been close to it already and he's only getting better. But this team's getting better. He's getting better. And like I said, the talent is there on this team. And this is a guy I think that needs more recognition. I don't think a lot of people talk about him enough, at least not right now. But their biggest strength, Kirill Kaprizov, you got a guy that could give you 100 points a season. You have great young talent around this kid. I think we've talked about that a bunch when talking about the Wild, about their talent and how good they are and their core and stuff like that. Their biggest weakness, though, and this is a big one, is at the faceoff dot. The Wild as a team last year finished with at a 47.3% as a team. That's terrible. That puts you in the bottom half of the league, and you can't use the excuse that they were a bad team. The Canadians were top 10 in the NHL last season in the faceoff. If you get top 10, you improve that faceoff, it's going to do wonders for you. If you aren't winning faceoffs, you don't control the puck. If you don't control the puck, you're going to have less offensive chances to score, less zone time. It's just going to be harder for you to win, and that it showed last year. They weren't that great. The powerhouse teams in the NHL always have an above 50% faceoff percentage. Improve that, and we're talking about an elite Minnesota Wild team. I really believe that.
We move on to the Utah Hockey Club, the team I'm most excited in this division to talk about. Frank, I'll let you go first.
And how about they open up against the Hawks, their home opener?
Yes, sir.
First time an NHL team will be playing their games in Utah. A hybrid expansion, as you may say. The ex-Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes, they were cooking up something great last season. And now they're just transferring over to a new state in Salt Lake City, Utah. They get Mikhail Sergachev. Sergachev will try and cement his status top pairing defenseman in Utah. If Sergachev could stay healthy, he's going to help this team that's on the come up. There are a ton of young guys on this team. You bring in a very good top defenseman that is also bringing over a little bit of experience from his playing time with Tampa Bay. You're going to get 22-plus minutes from him a night. You need that from this defensive group who doesn't have a lot of experience down on the blue line. Their strength, big strength, fresh start. You got the same team, but it's a fresh start. Start of a new franchise. The crowd's going to be buzzing. The decibel level is going to be through the roof. Going to be one of the loudest home crowds this team and this core has heard as they could finally get out of that 5,000 capacity college arena. This team is going to be on such a high from these fans. And the games, they're already like season tickets went like hotcakes. Games are already being sold out. This is going to be unbelievable for these guys. They're going to get a new boost of energy that they haven't heard of with the ex-Arizona Coyotes because now they got Utah. Their downfall, they're very inexperienced. They're very fun to watch, but very inexperienced. And at the end of the day, this is still the Arizona Coyotes, who they were on the come up. They will be fun. They are going to make game interesting. They could be one of those surprise teams this year. But like I said, at the end of the day, lines 2 through 4, they're not fully NHL line caliber teams yet. They're getting there. They'll be fun, but their second, third, and fourth line still need a lot of work to be done there to really be that team.
I love this team.
Oh, I know you do.
I love them. I'm not saying like in terms of like endearment. I'm saying this roster.
I know.
It is awesome. I can't wait. I've already watched one game, not to brag, because I don't boycott the preseason. The jerseys are crisp. They're plain. They're beautiful. I love them. I know they're gonna be the Yeti. Clayton Keller already like ruined it, but like they're sick. I love this team. And I think one team being named Utah HC would be cool. I loved the Washington football team. I don't love it if every team did it, but I think one team being known as the hockey team, oh, that is freaking so cool to me. And freaking Utah's got it for 1 year. That's going to be awesome. Clayton Keller is a dog. We've gotten in arguments over Clayton Keller before. That was one of the ones you were wrong, and I was right, because Clayton Keller is a dog. 85, 90 points a season is a lock for him. We'll see if he could ever become like that 100-point guy. I do think that's possible. It's, nothing's guaranteed, but this year he'll be. Barrett Hayton kind of came into his own with Arizona last year, and Nick Schmaltz finally looked like he was enjoying playing some hockey. And then I look at that second line, Lawson Krause, what a career revival he had with Arizona. And so far in the preseason, the one game that he played, it doesn't look like he's really slowing down. He was a high first-round pick by Florida for a reason, and it never, for whatever reason, worked out there. And now he's in Utah just slinging it. Love what he's doing. You know what I think of Logan Cooley, right? Last year, he was an awesome rookie, and I think he could come into this year and be a star. My player to watch, though, is Gunther. Dylan Gunther. That guy is awesome. He's going to score I wouldn't shock me if he scores 40 tucks this season. Like, I think the world of what Gunther is able to do as far as goal scoring. You might remember, actually, the year Connor Bedard was in the World Juniors. I think Bedard assisted on it. Gunther scored the golden goal in overtime against Czechia. And Bedard, it was like Bedard's World Junior, but Gunther was the one who scored in regulation and in overtime. Just an unreal player. I think he'll be up there for, a Rookie of the Year candidate. One thing I wanted to point out, Matias Michelli on the third line. I think that does, with Bukestad and Josh Doan, give them a little bit of depth. And, Matias Michelli, I was going to crack the joke. He's got the Italian name. He's got to have some kind of Italian heritage somewhere down the line. But he's a Finnish citizen. He's Finnish. To be named Matias Michelli from Finland, that's awesome. Hopefully he makes Team Finland, because then they could have an Italian on the team. That'll be really, really funny. And Team Italy will play in the Olympics 2 years from now. Well, we haven't seen Italy play. They haven't qualified. I looked it up. They haven't qualified in any of our years watching hockey, but they get to play as the host country in the next Olympics. So we'll see Italian hockey. That'll be really fun. But Utah, man, I think they're good. Kerfoot on the fourth line, too, with Jack McBain and Kevin Stenlund, guys who have been NHL players before. I like this Utah team, Frank. Vejmelka and Ingram in the net, too. They've both had good tenures in the NHL so far. Oh, and they also added John Marino and Mikhail Sergachev to their blue line that already had Dursey, Velmalki, and Cole. So, Ian Cole, strong veteran in the NHL for a while. There's a little bit of depth on this team. Oh, do they have a star? Yes, Clayton Keller is a star. I think Gunther can be a star. Cooley.
Not there yet, in my opinion.
They might not be yet.
There needs a lot. They still need a lot of development.
For sure. I really like what they're building. I can't wait to watch Utah. Cannot wait to watch Utah.
For sure.
How many years ahead of the Blackhawks rebuild would you put them?
Maybe a year, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
You probably got them like 3 years.
I
look at this team, and I just don't see NHL caliber lines. I really don't. Maybe one, the top line. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. You
got to give more. I mean, their top line is Keller, Hayton, Schmaltz.
100%.
And then Krause, Cooley, Gunther is an awesome line.
Yeah.
I think Michelli, Bukestad, Doan is like a really good fourth line or third line. I mean, I'm telling you.
You're relying on a lot of guys with inexperience, though.
Yeah, well, Yeah, they can. Some of them have proven it though. The only one I'm kind of banking on taking an extra step is Cooley.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think they're going to be decent. They were decent last year. They're fun. Just don't trust them yet.
I get you. Not a lot of people are going to. The Hawks just have Bedard though on their NHL lineup right now. Like nobody else. They don't have a Cooley, a Gunter. They have Keller, a better version, obviously, but like their top dog, they have him. They're like 4 or 5 high end first round picks on the roster, not in the organization, on the roster from being like that. So that could be 2 years, it could be 3, it could be 1. So I don't know. I like this Utah team, dude. I'm high on them. I was high on them when they were Arizona and they were good. Every game they were in last year. There was one game they were playing the Devils, and that Cooley scored twice, and I was like, of course he scores twice now. Like, and like you said about being rejuvenated with the new building and whatnot.
That's going to help for sure.
I'm getting all hot and bothered over the Utah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had a really good year this year, and then the year after a year in Utah, they take a step back.
We'll see. All right, Frank. St. Louis.
This is my hot take, maybe of the day or the podcast or whatever you want to say. I think this team stinks. I think the Blues, they made a push at the end of last season, only missed the postseason by 6 points. I think it's going to be hard for them to push for that postseason again this year. But you never know what kind of surprises they have up the sleeve. They have Robert Thomas, clearly the face of the Blues now. Robert Thomas, he set a career high in goals, assists, points last year. He's the top center, the top player on this team, the face of the franchise. When you look at this team, he's probably going to be the most fun player to watch. I have a lot of question marks surrounding the St. Louis Blues. But hopefully for Blues fans, Thomas makes this team enjoyable to watch. Because I don't have high expectations for the St. Louis Blues. I think their biggest strength, we might have to see this transition sooner rather than later, is Joel Hofer. Hofer, he could contend for the starting role over Jordan Binnington this season. Like I said, that switch I think needs to come sooner rather than later. I think he could bring this team back up and give the Blues a new name, a better name, in my opinion. This team, they don't shoot the puck enough. They fail to score goals, which also goes in hand. They have a horrendous power play. They were 18% on the power play, 24th in the NHL last season. They had the 9th fewest shots on goal per game. They finished the season with 2.58 goals per game. They didn't do anything to fix that this year. They didn't. They got Robert Thomas. They have Buchnevich. They got a couple guys, but they didn't do anything to bring in guys to fix their scoring problems. This team is desperate for additional scores. They don't have that at the moment. They need a lot more offensive pieces, and they're just not developed yet. They're there. They got players. They're just not developed yet. And that's why I don't love this team. I think they're lacking a lot of offensive talent.
I also think they stink. I like Buchnevich, I like Kyrou, and I like Robert Thomas. 3 forwards ain't going to do it, especially when the best one of them is Robert Thomas, who's a 90-plus point guy. He's done it. I like that they added Holloway. I think adding Broberg, really nice. Ryan Suter's a good depth defenseman now at this point in his career. He's being paid by 3 teams this season. That's got to be nice.
I think we're in the minority, VP.
I do not. I do not think we are. I think most people who follow hockey closely are down on the Blues. Why do you say that?
It's things I've read.
Oh, yeah. Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg are like the top 3, and then people are like, on Minnesota, Nashville, and Utah. And then I think most people have St. Louis, Chicago as 7 and 8 in that order. You got the top 3, and then the ones that make people go, huh?
You're going to disagree with me here. Obviously, I have the Blues higher than the Hawks, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Hawks finish higher than the Blues.
I think they'd have to have a catastrophically bad injury situation or terrible goaltending.
I think we could see a little bit of a surprise from the Blues on how bad they'll be.
Well, they need it. I think it's time. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they're that good. They'll be less boring than the Hawks. They might have a couple more points because of a little more experience and 1 or 2 more like impact players than the Blackhawks have. Like the Blackhawks, if we're being honest with ourselves, They don't have a Parayko or a Broberg or even a Falk right now on defense. Seth Jones is the closest. Maybe that's the only guy, but like Korchinski probably starts the year in Rockford now that he's eligible to play for Rockford. He wasn't eligible to play for them in the past. It was junior or the Hawks. And then, I like Vlasic, but offensively, he doesn't bring it the way some of these other guys do. Lev Shinov will probably make his NHL debut this season, but not at the start. He'll play mostly for Rockford. He's hurt right now, so that'll really put him in the AHL. But I don't love the Blues. I just think they have one or two more like daily impact guys on the back end. But as far as being boring and not fun to watch, I think the Blues are going to stink. I really do. And then we'll move on, Frank, to your team, the Chicago Blackhawks. What do you got for me?
Can't wait to watch them. Counting down the days, less than 2 weeks away from that season opener against Utah. I cannot wait. We're in year 2 of the Connor Bedard era. There are a lot of young players on this team that I am very looking forward to watching. Obviously, the Connor Bedard is the player to watch, coming off a Calder Cup rookie year. 61 points in 68 games was even better than I think we all were expecting. He was lights out. If he plays all 82 games this year, he's going to shatter his point total from last year, maybe even become a 30-goal scorer this year. He should. He's got that year of experience under his belt, and we saw what he could do when he was injured for 14 games. It's just he's a treat. He's a blessing to watch. And, what we're seeing from him is truly just the tip of the iceberg. I think he's got a lot more hardware to come in his young career, so I'm looking forward to watching him. Their strength is they have great leadership on this team. They're one of those teams who brought in that great veteran leadership to help guys develop. Nick Foligno was named captain. He's paving the way for the future captaincy for Connor Bedard when he's ready. Kyle Davidson has done great so far with this rebuild. They brought back a lot of fun players this year. Teuvo Teravainen's back. They bring in Tyler Bertuzzi, Alec Martinez. We're bringing in guys, veterans, to help these other guys develop. I really like their team this year. They're the number 1 prospect pool in the NHL. They're building something nice. And when I say I like this team, I don't think they're going to be an elite team by any stretch. I don't think they're going to be great, but I just like what I'm seeing right now, who they're throwing out on the ice. This is better than what they threw on the ice a couple years ago. But, the problem is they play in one of the toughest divisions in the NHL. It's going to be hard for them to pass some of these teams in the standings. And at this point in time, it's going to be hard for them to be a playoff team because of how stacked the Central Division is. I think the time is coming sooner rather than later. I think everybody still thinks like 2-3 years away. I wouldn't be shocked if next year they take a big jump after this season. But who really knows? Regardless, it's going to be a fun year to watch, and I can't wait. I'm getting the itch. The sweater and sweatpants is giving me the itch.
I get that. They're exciting. I really like Connor Bedard. He's one of the best players in the NHL already. I know you haven't seen it yet because you don't watch preseason, but Teuvo Teravainen and Connor Bedard already have like instant chemistry.
It's great.
Bedard had like the cross ice pass. Again, I know you didn't see it, so I got to describe it. Bedard passed the puck across the ice, and Teuvo Teravainen caught it and kind of put like a little backhand on. It's like it was a really cool goal. Just in case you want to like maybe go check it out because I know you haven't seen it yet. I think this team sucks. Right, I look at it on paper and I'm like, ugh. You have Mikheyev. We'll see what Athanasiou can do. Ryan Donato, he always gives you a little tickle and then he goes missing for 10 games. Bertuzzi, I don't really get it. Like I love Bertuzzi. I think he's a great player. I just don't get why he wanted to come play for the Hawks for 4 years because I think it's going to be right at near the end of his contract when the team starts getting good. Because I think they're ways away. You got Frank Nazar. He looked awful other than the third period in the last preseason game that I know you didn't watch. He's got to take some time to adjust to the pro game. I know he kind of hit the ground running a little last year. He will have his moments. It's going to take a while to get Korchinski and Lev Shinov and some of these guys into the position that they want them to be. I really do like their prospect pool. I think all over the world, they're going to have tons of success developing these guys. Blackhawks fans are going to be amongst the most entertained during the World Juniors this year. It's going to be really, really exciting. It's just, I don't see, because Halsey's already taking maintenance days, right? He didn't practice today for a maintenance day. We'll see how Lucas Reichel is as a second line winger, because they're not going to have him play center, I guess, this year. Craig Smith, really good game in the preseason game. But I'm not sure that he's going to be like an impact guy like that every time. Like, I think they'll probably be a little more exciting than they were last year. Is Dickinson going to score 20 goals again? I doubt it. Is Foligno going to make an impact as the captain? Yes. Is he going to score a ton? Probably not. I don't see a lot of goals on this roster, and their back end makes me want to throw up in my mouth. So hopefully Peter Mrazek doesn't have to take it too much this year, and hopefully Brossoit is a little healthy by the time October's over, so that Mrazek could kind of have like a good balance of games this year. But I think I'm a little more pessimistic on the quickness. Kyle said 5 years. It's been 3. So I think 2 years is really the goal. And obviously it'll depend on the progression of prospects and whatnot. But yeah, as far as this year, I kind of see the Central Division kind of wiping their butt with them.
Interesting.
But I'm excited about them. I can't wait to go to the games. Absolutely can't wait. It's going to be so fun. And Bedard is he's a reason to watch. They could go 82-0 and Bedard will entertain you.
I'm sure. Yeah, he's great.
50 goals this year.
I'd be sick.
I'm on it. I'm on 40 for sure. But I really think he could get to 50. All right. Crazy. Frank, let's quickly wrap this up. Give me your 8 in order, and then I believe you owe me 4 for the playoffs based on your Pacific predictions.
Number 1, Dallas Stars. 2, Colorado Avalanche. 3, Nashville Predators. 4, the final playoff team, the Minnesota Wild. 5, Winnipeg Jets. Just miss. 6, Utah. 7, Blues. 8, Hawks.
Wow.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the Hawks finish better than the Blues. I really wouldn't.
Wow. Okay. I got Dallas winning the division. I have the Nashville Predators coming in second. I have the Winnipeg Jets coming in third. The Colorado Avalanche coming in fourth. And fifth, with a playoff berth, because I only picked 3 Pacific teams, the Utah Hockey Club.
Wow.
I'm picking the Utah Hockey Club. 5th in the division, playoff team. The Minnesota Wild, they just don't have it for me right now. When they get in another year of Faber development, when they bring in Booyam, and when they spend a little extra money in free agency next summer, then I'll start to really see the Wild. The Wild will go from barely missing playoffs to like legit contender in a year and a half. I do believe that. But right now it's just not there for me. I got them in 6th, St. Louis in 7th, and then Chicago in 8th.
Wow.
Yep. All right, Frank, that was our Central Division preview. Very fun stuff. It is now time for America's favorite podcast segment of the week, Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Frank, it is now time for America's favorite podcast segment of the week, Breaking Bets. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Oops, that's the wrong. Hold on. Let's see what we got going on here. All right. So first up, we're gonna do a little dabble. We're gonna each sport we'll give a little love to here. We'll do one MLB, one college, one NFL. First up in the MLB, we're getting close to the end of the regular season. We're in the final series of the regular season. Game 162 is coming up. Well, tonight we got the Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers going at it. This is a huge game for the New York Mets, who are still fighting to get into the postseason on the last series of the season. Brewers have nothing to play for in this final series. They already won the NL Division, NL Central Division for back-to-back seasons. The Mets will be fired up. They're ready to go. They need to find a win in the win column. They are only 1 game ahead in the wild card race. And I expect Sean Manaea and the Mets to cook up something special during their final stretch of the regular season when their season is hanging in the balance. We got the New York Mets money line, -125, bet to win 2 units. Second, got some great college football matchups tonight. We got Washington at Rutgers. I was a Washington doubter last season, and every time I went against the Huskies, They lost their only 2 games. Go figure. Rutgers is going for their first 4-0 start since 2012, but Washington is going to be their toughest test yet. I don't love how Rutgers has gotten to 3-0 this season. They haven't had a true test. They beat Howard as one of their wins. I just think Washington will bring them down to earth a little bit. They're deeper. Will Rogers has looked great at quarterback for the Huskies, and I think they're due for a nice road win against undefeated Rutgers tonight, as Washington is the deeper overall team. Washington money line, 3 units at plus 102. And finally, we head to Sunday, I should say. Going to give out a little parlay here. We got the Bengals at the Panthers and the Broncos at the Jets. I like Bengals Jets money line at minus 118. Bet to win 5 units. Bengals are in danger of falling 0-4. There's a team to turn it around against. It's Andy Dalton and the Panthers, who are due for a letdown after a dominant win over the Raiders. Overperformed, letdown coming. Even with how bad the Bengals have been this year, I don't see them falling to the Panthers. Same goes for the Jets. Jets have been good, but Broncos also due for a letdown after a dominating performance on the road against the Buccaneers. Aaron Rodgers has looked good thus far, and I don't see Denver coming out with 2 immaculate road wins in a row. Perfect value on this parlay. Cincinnati Bengals money line parlayed with the Jets money line at minus 118. Bet to win 5 units. VP, that's what I got for you.
I actually think the Bengals are the best 0-3 team I've ever seen. Like you said, they've been they lost to the Chiefs on a bad penalty on the last play of the game. And they this last weekend, they should have had it.
This was bad. This was a bad week for him.
I mean, like they
That
just
was embarrassing.
they should not have lost to the Commanders.
Jaden Daniels, he's been great.
Yeah, 100%. But that just should not have been a game the Bengals lost.
But that's the problem.
And then in week 1, they choked too. So
shouldn't have lost that game either.
No, exactly. That's my point. So they could easily be 2-1, 3-0 if they just 1 or 2 plays went. But I guess that's the NFL. You might remember 2 years ago they made it to the AFC Championship game, and lost to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that happened.
That year they started 0-3, I believe, as well. So we'll see if they're able to come back. They got the Panthers this week to try and kick it off. I'm excited for it. But yeah, Frank, it's been a good ep. Really quick before we go. What's that coming down the track?
What's that coming down the track?
It's the big machine in the red and black.
Big black machine. Wait, what is it?
It's the big machine in the red and black.
Big machine in the red and black.
Ain't nothing finer in the land.
Nothing finer in the land
than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
Drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Georgia.
Give me Alabama.
That was funny.
That was the best. That was the best. They play each other this weekend for the first time since the SEC championship. That faithful day where McAfee did that. That's the first time Georgia and Bama will face off. That is tomorrow night. That's my shout out to the game of the week that I'm most excited for in any sport. Frank, anything left before we hop on out of here?
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Go. To everybody you watch this weekend, all the great shows on the Bar Room Network. And as always, Frank, thank you for listening.